Hey everybody, this is Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and I want to take this chance to wish everybody a happy New Year's. I hope you have a great time tonight, and when we come back for 2023, we're going to hit the ground running. I want to do more with this channel, and I hope you all will take part in it. I don't even know what that means at this point. I know that on my end, I want to have better production values. I'd like to have better setups, a better studio, better quality videos. I like the content I'm bringing you, and I'd love to have your all's feedback and see if you enjoy this kind of content. You know what I do? I do a lot of comic book hauls, CGC unboxings, and I talk a lot about the books that I am speculating on and books that I just want for my PC. It's just a general overall comic book talk kind of discussion that we have here. And I'm glad that you guys are a part of it, and I want to keep growing it. I don't know what I really want to do with the channel other than just keep growing and just keep sharing with you guys, and hopefully that you can gain something from my mistakes that I make, and maybe I actually do something right and you learn from that as well. Who knows? But today what we've got is a comic book haul for you. But this is actually books that I picked up from my day right after Christmas. What I did on the day after Christmas is I went on a comic book store tour of some of my favorite stores and one new store here in Maryland. And so I spent the day going to the shops and just picking up a few books, things that interested me, things that might have been on the speculation list, and things that just kind of popped out at me because of the quality of the books and the age of the books. Not unlike some of the books that I picked up from some of the ones down in Roanoke, Virginia earlier this week. So without any further ado, let's get into the books and we'll go over the first shop. So the first shop that is on my list today is a brand new comic book store to me. Now I think they've been around for a while. I didn't go back and do the history on them and see how long they've been around, but judging from the store, they've been there for a while. This little store up in Parkville, Maryland. It's inside the Beltway in Baltimore here, so technically it probably has a Baltimore address, but it is a small little shop that is full of so many toys. I don't have any footage from you there because surprisingly the shop right after Christmas was really packed, and I didn't feel comfortable going in there and filming when I had so many people in such a tight space. I didn't want to be filming people, and it was just so much fun to go looking around at all the different toys. And I'm not talking in terms of, oh, they just had a lot of Funkos or they just had a lot of D&D toys. I mean, the action figures, the vintage toys, the brand new toys. I mean, it was really, you could spend, it was like a little boy's Christmas dream to wake up on Christmas morning and see this kind of place. It was really, it just took me back. I just wanted to stop and start pulling open action figures and start playing with them. They had all kinds of the old Mego superhero action figures from the 70s. Actually, these are reproductions from, I believe it's the son of the original creator has the license to redo a lot of the dolls that they did. These action figures, 7-inch figures from the 70s, and just tons of those things. I mean, I just wanted to pull them out and start playing with everything. But they did have comics, and that's what I was there for. And I was able to go and take a look. They had some really good books in terms of back issues. Not a lot of bins to go through, and they weren't necessarily in alphabetical order either, but they had a bunch of keys in a display case, and they had it on some on the wall, and then they had a bunch of bins that I went through, and they weren't, as I said, they weren't in alphabetical order, so it took a little while, but I dug through and I started finding some really cool books, and I'm just going to get into the books and we'll talk about them. First up is a reprint series from the 70s. This is Marvel Spectacular. This is when they reprinted the Mighty Thor, the original Kirby and Lee stories where he had first met Hercules, and when the title had switched over to Thor as well. And I believe this is a reproduction of the cover as well. And I didn't buy this for speculation. I bought this mostly for nostalgia. I had this book as a kid. This is where I read my first Silver Age stories, was in the 70s when I was 6 and 7 years old. So this right here was one of the first Thor books outside of the regular Thor book that I read, but one of the older Thor stories that I ever read. I think that's why I always loved that storyline with Thor and Hercules in that. It's because I grew up with that. Just to give you some values, though, something like this is in a 9.8, not, well, I was going to say it doesn't cost a lot, but it's actually about a $400 value right now for American value. 9.6 really drops off into that $79 to $74 range as a 9.4, 9.6. I didn't buy this for speculation, but I do buy these books when they're definitely in high grade. If this had had a lot of ticks to it, I definitely wouldn't have bought it. I bought it always with the thought that I might get it cleaned and pressed. So even in this hobby, I think of my PC and I think of resale value. It all goes hand in hand. Sometimes one outweighs the other, but in the end, I'm trying to rebuy. If I rebuy books like this, I try to buy them in really high grade so that at some point when I pass these down to my daughter, there will be some value to them, even if it is just for a PC for myself. Next up was a fun book. It's not something I had as a kid, but I had other issues. This is Hot Stuff from Harvey Comics. Now, this is also from 1974. Actually, I can't remember when the Thor was. I think it was 74 as well, but the Hot Stuff was definitely from 1974. And normally I wouldn't have picked up this book, but I've been going through and looking at a lot more non-superhero books these days. Books from my childhood and even older that are non-superhero that I'm looking at the conditions. Not a lot of people are looking for these, but I'll take a look at them these days, and if I can find them in super high grade, I might just go ahead and pick it up. And I always love reading Hot Stuff and Casper and trying to think some of the other characters that were around that, Baby Huey, Little Dot, characters like this. And a book like this right here is a 9.6 right now, has about $110 value, but that is a value because it's not a hot commodity, it's not a hot book, current book. That's a price from about 2021. You'd have to go to, for a 9.6 and something like this, you have to go back for a sale of maybe $120 back in 2007. So as I said, it's not a book that's on anybody's radar, but with the ages of books like this, I will pick them up when I find them in high grade like this. Now here's one that I never had. I never saw this, but I did see the advertisements for the toy back in the day all over the backs of the comic books. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about Evel Knievel, the stuntman that was so popular in the 70s. Well, had a giveaway comic. I never realized they had a comic book, but the art looks very similar. I believe, my guess is it's John Romita Sr. who did this. And he may have done the advertisement artwork as well that you used to see on the back of comic books back in the Bronze Age. And I saw this. I had several copies of this, and this really just jumped out at me. This was the cleanest of the three. I think it was. They had a $20 price tag, and I didn't give you prices on the other. Let me get that real quick. Hot Stuff, I paid. It was $15. The Mighty Thor, Marvel Spectacular is another $15. These are not expensive, and they were running a 40% off sale on most of their books. So I was 40% off all of these right there. So the prices I'm giving you, it's a 40% off of that. And this right here is a little surprising. I wasn't sure what something like this would go for. I didn't even look it up really in the store, but I knew the age of something like this in a super high grade and being a giveaway like this would be rare to begin with. And I was right. A 9.8 on something like that is about a $450 fair market value. It drops off a little. 9.6 is $190. 9.4 is about $160. Who knows? I think, again, this is one of those books that you probably have to find somebody who's really interested in this to take it. It's probably not the most popular things, but I think you'll find enough collectors out there of these Bronze Age books like this and the scarcity of something like this that would probably make it desirable, but just not from a huge audience, I would imagine. And then the last two books I picked up were both of them Spider-Man. Now, this is Spider-Man 180. Now, this right here is the origin and death of the Green Goblin, the Bart Hamilton Green Goblin. Now, I wasn't reading a lot of the books from about 150 up to about 190. I don't know if I really, it wasn't that I had gotten out of comics. It was just I'd gotten a little bit older, activities had picked up, and I had stopped going to town with my mom on Saturdays when we used to go into town, and we'd go to the grocery store or the drugstore where they had the comics. So I wasn't picking up quite as many comics back in those days. So I never had this particular issue. But definitely always a key to have a Green Goblin cover like this. Now, a book like this, it's in super high grade. They had it listed for 20, again, 40% off of that. 9/8 go for about $270, 9/6 about $130, and a 9/4 goes for about $100. So I think that this is a book right here, as well as the next one. They both have a lot of those what we call pressable defects. They got creases in the spine, but they're not color breaking. Things, creases and waves in the cover. Again, not color breaking, not color rubs. I think both this one and the next one will both press out really well. And let me show you the other one. Now, this one I did have as a kid. I had this one. I still have it in my collection, my old reader copies when I was growing up. This right here is issue 156, and this is the first appearance of Mirage. And beautiful John Romita senior cover right here. This one really shocked me. I really, again, I didn't look it up. I know the value of all these Spider-Mans from the 70s like this. Even if it's not a key, if it's in super high grade, it's going to be a in-demand book. But I was shocked. A 9.8 on something like this. Fair market value. I couldn't believe this. I may have to go back and double check this, but I've got it right now as a $3,900 9.8. It's like, wow, you got to be kidding me. 9.6 drops down to $2,000. A 9.4 drops down to $1,100. Man, I'm telling you, this is a book right here I get excited about when I see those kind of, what I figure is inflated numbers. But pressable defects, if I can get them out and get that high grade up there, this is a book definitely that I will turn around in a heartbeat. As I said, I read this and I had this as a kid, but it's not something that's so close to me that I wouldn't mind parting with it. But that one right there is definitely one that I kind of speculated on once I picked it up and realized just what value it has in those super high grades. So anyway, that right there was the books I picked up from Collector's Corner. They've got a great sale going on until, I believe, today. I'm not sure if it's through New Year's or just through New Year's Eve, but they've got some other great books there that I may end up going back and taking a look at. Yeah, it was very exciting. Maybe the next time I go up there, if it's not quite as crowded, I think I'll try to film and I'll shoot some footage from there. But this store right here, guys, this is Collector's Corner here in the Baltimore area in Parkville. You can look them up, and I will leave a link in the description. That way you guys can learn a little bit more about them. All right, so the second shop that I ended up hitting was one of my favorites. It's one that I talk about all the time, and it's one that I go to just about every new comic book day down there. They have one of the best new comic selections I've ever seen. They buy so many brand new comics every week that their variants and ratio incentives are just insane. It's why I started going there, is that they just had such a choice if that's what you were really into. Now, I've pulled back on ratios and incentives like that, but I still go down there, and books that I still need to pick up for New Comic Book Week, it's nice to be able to go down there and see the variety, because it isn't just a small selection of mostly Marvel and DC with a handful of independents. It is a ton of comics every week. So it's always very impressive. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland. They are the mothership store. They have all kinds of Third Eye Comics around the Baltimore area and then down in Richmond as well. And this is the mothership in Annapolis. It is a massive store. If you guys ever get a chance to go there, please do so. It will just blow your mind how many comics, new comics that they have. They're a little bit limited on the back issues, but they have these really good walls with back issue keys. And as well as tons of toys, maybe more toys than Collector's Corner. Except that they have so much more space, they can spread it out. So you can walk up and down aisles and you can see the toys maybe a little bit better, but it doesn't give you quite that same feeling as you did at the other shop, where it's just, you're encased in it. And the number of trade paperbacks and books that they have is just phenomenal as well. So Third Eye Comics is just what a great place. I go there just about every week, and what I mentioned before was they have a great wall selection that changes practically every few days. They're always advertising. They put some new keys up there, and if you don't get down there quick, you're going to miss them. I missed a Wolverine #1, the Frank Miller miniseries that was up there the other day. I was down there that evening, and I missed it. Somebody snapped it up that morning. Like, as soon as the doors opened up, somebody ran in and got it. But some of the other keys didn't get snapped up necessarily, and well, that's what I ended up picking up. And this is a book that's gone down in value recently, but I keep looking for high-grade versions of this. This is Fantastic Four 273 by John Byrne, and this is the first full appearance of Reed Richards' father, Nathaniel Richards, who is also the father of Nathaniel Richards, who, I guess, Jr., who later becomes Kang. So this is the first appearance right here. Nathaniel Richards' son goes on to be Kang. It's so convoluted. All the stories from this time period, at the time, I don't think anybody really kind of realized it was Kang. I guess, I don't know. It was very confusing. I remember that at the time. They also had the Cancel Kangs over in Avengers that was also very confusing. So this was a pretty hot key, but over this last year, I've seen this book drop in value. This was, at one point, was a $85, $95, $100 book. Now, this I ended up paying a whole $20 for. And I have got this, but I've not been able to get a 9.8 on this. At this point, you need to get a 9.8 on this to have some value. It doesn't have, there's not a lot of value on it. It's not even a $100 comic at this point. But you still need to get a 9.8 on it to get that value. And I think this is a book that's going to rebound. When we get Kang and Immortus in the MCU and they start exploring some of these stories, and with the Fantastic Four and Horizon, it'll be interesting to see if they end up connecting some of these things. If they connect Fantastic Four to Kang, to Nathaniel Richards, to Rama Tut, to any of these characters, this right here is definitely still a key. It didn't stop being a key, no matter what the value is at this point. So again, I picked this up because it looks super nice. So let's hope that I can pull a 9.8 on this after I get it into the shop. It looked really good on, no spine ticks or anything. So I think we're going to be really good on this book unless something turns around and surprises me. Now, the other book I picked up is a book that I've gotten before, and this one I paid a little bit more for it, but the condition is super nice, and it is Detective Comics number 566. I've gotten 9.6s and 9.4s on this, and this right here is the classic Batman's Rogues Gallery. And if you go through the book, you've got this great Gene Colan artwork, and you go through, and it really is a kind of a who's who of Batman villains of the time. And I want to say this is this around 1984? I'm not sure. It's somewhere in, it's obviously mid-80s. And every page is, like I said, a who's who of the classic villains. And that in itself is why this is a kind of a key comic book, and it's very desirable. And as a 9.8, if you can ever pull this, and I haven't pulled it yet, I've pulled that 9.6 and a 9.4. 9.8 on this, I think, is around a $400 value as a 9.8. So this is why I keep getting this book if I can find it in this super high grade. And I think I did. I think this one looked really good. There were a few other keys on the wall at Third Eye Comics that I had pulled down. There was a Wolverine #1 from 1988. I want to say there was a Thor, was it God of Thunder #6? Is that the first appearance of Gore, the God Butcher? All of these had little ticks to them that I just didn't want to have to deal with, that were going to knock these grades down. I'm shooting for 9.8s on just about everything I do these days, and if I see an obvious defect that's going to knock it down, a lot of cases I will pass that book over. I'll leave it to somebody else. They may want it more for their PC than me. I want some for my PC, but I definitely want some for that resellability. Be able to get them graded, be able to sell them, be able to maybe have some, keep a high grade in my collection, as well as sell another high grade to help pay for other parts of the hobby. But this right here is definitely one that I think has super 9.8 potential. Let's keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. All right, so my last shop that I hit during this little bit of a tour here in Maryland was probably my favorite comic book shop. Third Eye might compete with it, but Cards, Comics, and Collectibles in Reisterstown, Maryland definitely is my favorite comic book shop. They have so many old back issues that are in super great condition. It takes forever to go through them. They are definitely in alphabetical order, which is fantastic. They have tons of toys. They have tons of back issues and trade paperbacks, new issues. They are a fully rounded comic book shop, and they are the sponsors to the Baltimore Comic-Con. So there's always that connection, and I always love going there. If you go back, I should put at the end of the video, I probably will put a link to one of my comic book, I guess my Thanksgiving Day comic book haul, where I went to Cards, Comics, and Collectibles and did a massive buy of some really big keys, and I'll show you some of the books that I picked up there. I think you would enjoy watching that video again and seeing some of the books that I'm picking off of their walls. Well, this was just a run by. They're not running any sale right now, so I wasn't really looking to go deep into some of their books, knowing full well that they have sales every now and then. But I stopped by. I wanted to see what other key kind of books there were, and if there's anything different I could find. I was definitely looking outside the box when I went there, and I ended up buying this right here. This is Cerebus number 55. Just a beautiful Dave Sim cover of, this is Wolveroach. This is a second appearance, I believe. But what a great cover. This right here might be a better cover than the first appearance in 54. I believe it was 54. If I'm wrong on that, guys, let me know. And this is a $10 comic book. But I would have passed this over if there had been any spine ticks on this black cover. And of course, black covers are so hard not to get a quick color-breaking spine tick. And I might already have this in the collection, but I don't know if I've got it this grade. This is not a book that will command a lot of money. There's not a lot of desire for these, except if you're my age and you kind of grew up reading Cerebus and you have an affinity for the book and the characters and the parody that Dave Sim did. This right here, 9/8, only maybe $116. You could always get it graded, and maybe if you get that 9/8, you might be able to find a Cerebus collector out there. But again, this is a PC book. This is a personal favorite that I picked up during college. So, yeah, super clean book. Now, the second one is a book that I do have in the collection, but I did it because of the condition, and I don't mind adding this. This is one of those that has been called a foundational comic book. It's not a super big key, but it is a minor kind of key. It is Justice League number 1. This is from 1987 from DC Comics, and this is the new Justice League. This is where you've got Guy Gardner, and you see the characters. Blue Beetle, Booster Gold comes in. You've got Batman there. There's Dr. Fate. It's just, the writing on this was so contemporary at the time. It was probably the funniest comic book out there without just being a comedy comic book. The interaction between Batman and Guy Gardner was just classic dialogue. I don't think that many comics could compete with the level of writing that you found in this book at this time period. And you've got the Kevin Maguire artwork right here, and I can't move the camera, but I literally have a print of the Justice League up on the wall back up here that I got Kevin Maguire signed about a year ago at one of the conventions that had most of the Justice League, and it was a very similar pose to this, but it had just about all of the Justice League characters of the time. And this right here, again, was just a great condition comic book. If you could pull a 9/8 on this, it's only $120, but I think this is going to be one of those books that will increase in time. There's a great affinity for this book. I think a lot of people love this run of Justice League, and I think they're going to look back on this and know this is the key issue. This is the first issue, and I think people will gravitate and want this book in their PC at some point. And I don't have this graded. I think I've got it signed, actually. But it's definitely what could be considered a minor foundational book, I suppose. And then the last one was this was the outside the box that I went there, and I ended up paying a little bit of money for it, and I bought it because of the money, not the speculation. I don't necessarily jump on the speculation bandwagon. In fact, I didn't even think about it until I was up at the counter and they said something, oh, you're getting ready to speculate on the book and everything. And it's a Blue Beetle from Charlton Comics. This is issue number 5. This is from 1968. And, of course, we've got the new movie, I guess, coming out at some point from the DCU. I guess it's still been greenlit at this point. And I didn't buy it because of that. I bought it because of the age and the condition. And a little bit of the desirability of some of these Charlton comic books from this time period. The Captain Adams and the Blue Beetle books are very desirable. And especially in a high grade like this. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that this book is a 9.8. Actually, I didn't even write the value down because I don't consider this a 9.8. But you may get it into an outside shot at that 9.6, maybe a 9.4. Now, I could be completely off base on that, but I'll go ahead and give you those values. 9.6 right now is a $525 value. Fair market value. 9.4 is about $260. So there's still, even if you go down in those kind of increments, even 9.2, you're probably going to be talking $120, $140. Now, I paid $50 for this. But again, I bought this because of the condition. It is really nice. See, one very minor color break up there. But the rest of that spine, especially this yellow right here down behind Blue Beetle here, it's really sharp and it's really brilliant. So the color is really strong in that spot. I mean, that's a strange way of describing it, but it's definitely meaning that there hasn't been color rub on that area. So we'll see where something like this goes. Again, another I shouldn't say non-superhero, but a non-DC, non-Marvel comic book that has value. Buying age, buying condition, and a little bit of buying the character in this case, I suppose, too. But this one was definitely bought on condition. And we'll see where it goes from there. I thought it was a fun pickup. You guys, let me know. What do you think of this book? Let me know what you think of all the other books. I think this was a fun haul. This was a fun day of touring some of these comic book shops. I'm going to go and continue doing this. I'm doing a lot more research on the Baltimore, D.C. area, and there's a lot of comic book shops. And I think I'm going to continue doing this little bit of a tour every week or so and go around and check these shops out and give them a shout out and give them my plug and tell you my opinion of the shop and what kind of shop that they are. I have a feeling a lot of these shops are going to be new comic book, anime, toy, manga types of shops like that, whereas some of the shops that I gravitate toward are definitely these wall book, older issue kind of comic stores. That's what I gravitate towards. And so I'm not going to poo-poo on ones that don't necessarily do that, but I'm going to tell you that that's not what I'm going after. I'm not going after new comic books necessarily, even though I buy a ton. That's not what this channel really is about, unless we're getting them graded. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys have a wonderful New Year's tonight. Be careful. If you're out partying, be careful. Take Uber, take Lyft. Don't drink and drive. Be safe so we can come back in the new year and we can sit down and we can talk about more comic books, because that's the name of the game around here, is comic books and talking about them and our love for them. Join me on this adventure. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. Thank you guys for those who have subscribed. And if you like today's video, please hit the thumbs up so it will help the algorithm. I don't understand anything about that, but I always hear people say, hit the thumbs up, it'll help the algorithm. So let's help the algorithm, guys. Come on. So, guys, take care. Happy New Year's, and I'll see you for the next episode.